You were deceived. They told you that if you worked hard, were polite, obedient, and dedicated, everything would work out. You grew up hearing that success was a formula. Study, get into a good college, land a respectable job, buy a house, start a family, and smile in the pictures. But now, as an adult, you look around and within yourself and realize something's not right. You feel tired, anxious, lonely. There are days when you wake up without the will to get out of bed, even though you've done everything that was expected of you. Nietzsche would call this a reactive life. You're not living, you're merely responding to what the world demands from you. And this is where our deep dive begins. Into the great illusion. The success they promise doesn't exist, and what they call success may have never been yours. From a very early age, most of us were taught that there's a correct path to follow. An invisible, socially accepted map that defines what it means to be someone in life. Study hard, get good grades, get into a respected university, earn a degree, then a good job, climb the ladder, buy a house, start a family, travel during vacations, and finally smile for the photos as if it had all been worth it. This script seems fair, logical, safe, but was it really made for you? Nietzsche warned us about this danger. To him, modern morality, the kind that values obedience, conformity, and repetition, is a sophisticated prison. A prison whose walls are invisible yet very real, where the individual stops existing as the creator of their own life and becomes nothing more than a cog in what he called herd morality. The man of the herd is the one who obeys without questioning, who lives by rules he did not create, who exists not to be, but to please. Nietzsche. And this is the great trap of the success myth. It disguises itself as freedom but demands submission. Submission to your parents' expectations, to the market's demands, to the judgment of strangers, to a vision of the future that may not even be yours. Let's think carefully. How many of your life choices were truly made out of desire, not fear? Fear of disappointing, fear of not being accepted, fear of failing in a game whose rules you didn't even write. The system, from school to the corporate world, was designed to produce useful people, not fulfilled ones. People who function well, who produce well, who fit in well. But where is your individuality in all of this? Where is the space for mistakes, for silence, for saying no? The truth is that the myth of success as rewarded obedience has turned many people into mere survivors. People who don't really live, they just meet goals. Who don't feel, they just deliver results. Who don't question, they just repeat. And the worst part, many even achieve all of it. They get the degree, the title, the status, but deep down, they feel something still missing inside, because they've molded themselves so much to what was expected that they lost sight of who they could have been. Nietzsche would call this the denial of the will to power, the deepest human instinct to become something unique, authentic, and elevated. But this instinct is trimmed early on in the name of stability. And the price for that is an entire generation that seems fine on the outside, but is dying of anguish on the inside. So now I ask you, as you look into your own thoughts, how many parts of yourself did you have to kill in order to make it? We now live in an era where success doesn't even need to be real. It just needs to look like it. All it takes is good lighting, the right framing, and a few carefully chosen words. And just like that, you're looking at someone who seems to have won at life. Social media has turned success into a permanent storefront, a gallery of achievements, perfect bodies, international trips, self-owned businesses, motivational quotes. But that gallery comes with a price. It destroys us silently from within. Nietzsche once said that human beings have a dangerous tendency to live for the eyes of others. The greatest obstacle to becoming who you are is the desire to please the gaze of the world. Today, that gaze has taken on a digital form. We are being watched all the time, liked, commented on, validated, and at the same time profoundly disconnected from ourselves. Comparison has become an addiction. You wake up, grab your phone, and you're already competing. With the influencer's beauty, with the entrepreneur's success, with the perfect family of the smiling couple, with your old classmate who made it. But what you're seeing isn't the truth. You're comparing yourself to someone's storefront, using your real emotional inventory, your vulnerabilities, your bad days, your doubts. It's an unfair fight. According to a report by the American Psychological Association, intense use of social media is directly linked to increased anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy, especially among young adults between 18 and 35, the most connected generation, and also the most anxious in history. If Nietzsche were alive today, he'd probably say we've created a new form of slavery, the slavery of image, of appearance, of playing roles. After all, who are we when no one's watching? Who are we when there's no applause? This pressure to appear happy, productive, successful, and even when you're falling apart inside, is a form of violence, a daily, emotional, normalized violence. And the more you try to fit in, the further you drift from your own truth. The philosopher reminds us, become who you are. But how do you become who you are when you're constantly molding yourself into what others want to see? And maybe that's the cruelest trap of our generation. It's not enough to live. You have to look like you're living better than everyone else. You have to show it. But deep down, when the screen goes dark and silence sets in, many feel empty because success has become a theater, and the soul, a tired spectator, just wants to leave the play. Maybe you're feeling that anguish of no longer knowing what's real in you and what's just a performance. And if that's the case, take a deep breath. Because recognizing this is already the first step out of this invisible prison. Have you ever asked yourself why you work? And I don't mean the automatic answer, to pay bills, to survive, because that's how it is. But really, why do you do what you do every day? Nietzsche believed that the essence of human beings lies in their will to power, a vital force that drives us to grow, to create, to achieve, not for others but for ourselves, to fulfill ourselves, to blossom into something greater than what we were yesterday. But that power has been slowly suffocated by the logic of the modern system. Today, work has ceased to be an expression of life and has become a tool for survival, for alienation. It's when you work all month without really knowing what you're building, when you feel like you're just pressing buttons, solving tasks that don't even make sense to you, living Monday through Friday as if on autopilot, waiting for the weekend like a prisoner waits for their hour in the sun. And this is far from rare. According to global consultancy Gallup, 85% of people worldwide feel unmotivated or completely disconnected from the work they do. In other words, the vast majority of humanity isn't living their purpose. They're just functioning. Nietzsche would say we are witnessing a generation with busy bodies and idle souls. Bodies that run, deliver, produce, but souls that scream in silence for meaning, for expression, for truth. Society has rewarded efficiency, not essence. And in this process, you may become what Nietzsche feared the most: a domesticated man, someone who has learned to say yes to everything soon, just to avoid missing out. But in this constant yes, ended up losing themselves. Let's think of a real example. How many people do you know who hated what they did but stayed anyway, out of fear, out of safety, out of status? People who deep down had talent for art, for writing, for teaching, for creating, but gave it all up in favor of a more stable, and silently suffocating path. And that suffocation isn't just emotional, it comes with physical symptoms: insomnia, anxiety, lack of energy, unexplained pain. It's the body trying to warn you that something is wrong, that your soul wasn't made to live without purpose. Nietzsche said that the strong man is the one who creates his own values. who shapes his existence with courage even when it means leaving the path behind. But the system doesn't want that. The system needs you to stay seated, silent, tired, but functional. And maybe that's why so many people feel like they're dying inside while still submitting the right spreadsheet, replying to emails on time and clocking in every day. It's not laziness, it's the absence of meaning. You were trained to work, but no one taught you how to listen to your inner power, and now maybe you're waking up to that emptiness, to this routine that repeats itself, without soul, without art, without passion, and that hurts. But Nietzsche would say it's also the beginning of freedom, because only when you see the cage do you start looking for the key. The success sold to us today has little to do with personal fulfillment. It's about stimulation, about dopamine, about the desperate need to feel, even if just for a few seconds, that you matter. Nietzsche, in his critique of nihilism, foresaw this. He understood that when human beings lose contact with the deeper meaning of life, they start looking for shallow substitutes. They begin to seek relief, not truth, distraction, not awakening. And today, success has become exactly that, an anesthetic. You feel exhausted, lost, unmotivated. But when you get a promotion, a trip, a public compliment, an extra like, your brain is flooded with dopamine, the reward molecule. And for a moment, everything seems to make sense. It feels like it was all worth it. But it's just a temporary relief. Have you ever noticed how quickly the euphoria fades after getting what you wanted so badly? It's like the emptiness returns faster than you expected. That's because what you achieved didn't touch your essence. It only massaged your ego for a few minutes. Nietzsche said the danger lies in replacing life with the appearance of life. There are no facts, only interpretations. And in our time, the interpretation of success matters more than success itself. Let's take a real and recent example. Many digital influencers, who supposedly had it all, have come forward in recent years to confess severe crises of depression, anxiety, and burnout. Some even abandoned social media altogether. Why? Because behind the photos in paradise, the million-dollar deals, and the fame, there was an existence without depth. There was an unsustainable pace of performance. There was a profound disconnection from the self. They weren't living. They were running away, and success was the perfect hiding place. But over time, that hiding place turns into a cell. Nietzsche believed that the most dangerous force in modern life is elegant self-deception. You believe you're winning, when in reality you're just avoiding looking inward. You fill your schedule, your closet, your bank account, but you still feel like something is missing, maybe because something really is. And this isn't about moralizing, it's not about saying that wanting to succeed is wrong. Nietzsche wasn't against ambition, he was against escape disguised as glory. He wanted you to succeed, yes, but by conquering yourself, not others. He wanted you to rise, yes, but by climbing through your own truth, not someone else's script. Because the greatest victory isn't having more, it's no longer needing to run. And maybe you're starting to realize that now. Maybe you're tired of the feeling that every achievement requires you to become someone you're not. Maybe you're exhausted from depending on the next goal just to feel whole for 5 fleeting minutes. This is the pain many try to silence with success. But Nietzsche would say that pain needs to be heard because it's the sign that something true within you still hasn't been lived. We live in an age where everything must be fast, practical, and comfortable. Apps deliver food in minutes, messages arrive instantly, content is consumed in seconds. But in this world of instant gratification, something essential has been lost: the ability to suffer with meaning. Nietzsche didn't see suffering as a flaw in existence. On the contrary, to him, pain was the price of greatness, the fuel for transformation, the proof that you are alive and in motion. One must still have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. But today's generation was taught to avoid all discomfort. We were convinced that suffering equals failure, that anguish is weakness, that any sign of inner pain must be eliminated, treated, silenced, and that comes with a deep cost. Because when you don't learn to deal with pain, you also don't learn to grow from it. You become emotionally fragile, existentially unstable, like a tree grown in a greenhouse, beautiful on the outside but with shallow roots. Look at the current reality. According to the World Health Organization, anxiety disorders have increased by over 25% in recent years. And depression rates among young adults have never been higher. That's not a coincidence, it's a consequence. We're trying to live a life without pain. And it's precisely why we feel so empty. Nietzsche called this the decadent spirit, the one that seeks pleasure as an escape from reality, not as an expression of life. And the system encourages this. It offers us pills to sleep, series to binge watch, endless scrolling to distract ourselves. Also, you don't have to face what hurts, but also so you don't have to change. Because change hurts. Saying no hurts. Breaking the autopilot hurts. Ending toxic relationships hurts. Admitting that you've lived years away from your true self, that hurts deeply. But it's that pain that heals. That pain clears the ground. It's the pain that prepares you for a new life. More authentic, more aligned with who you really are. Nietzsche believed that the man who loves his destiny, even with its falls, its losses, its pains, is a strong man. He called it amor fati, the love of one's fate, of one's story, of one's path. And you? Do you love your fate or merely tolerate it? Many times the pain you feel today is not a sign of weakness. It's the birth of something within you that doesn't yet have a name. It's the call to leave the surface and dive into your depth. You don't need to run from it. You need to listen to it, sit with it. Ask what it wants to show you. Because as Nietzsche said, those who can endure the why of their pain will find a how to live. We live in a world where everything has a function, but almost nothing has meaning. We're encouraged to stay busy, fill our days, stack up accomplishments. But rarely are we invited to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Nietzsche warned us that true suffering isn't in the hardships themselves, but in the absence of meaning. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And today, millions of people face the how. Waking up early, working hard, hitting targets, maintaining social ties, but have no idea why. You might have the dream car, a prestigious career, a growing follower count, a family admired by everyone, and still feel like you're living on autopilot, one day after another, a soulless cycle. And this is the most silent and most dangerous symptom of an entire generation, existential emptiness. That emptiness doesn't show up right away. It creeps in around the edges. You start to feel tired where you used to feel excited, doubt where you once had certainty, anguish during moments that should bring peace, and the worst part, you blame yourself for it, because on the surface you have everything they told you meant being successful. But Nietzsche would say what you have is a borrowed purpose, something that was placed in you by society, by your family, by the system, and that you never truly questioned. It's like being in a play, performing your role perfectly, while deep down feeling that the script no longer has anything to do with you. You see real-life examples of this everywhere. Young people graduating in fields they never wanted to pursue. Professionals who reached the top of their careers only to feel emotionally exhausted and broken. People who spent their whole lives trying to make it, only to find out that making it is an empty destination. According to Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived concentration camps and founded logotherapy, the greatest suffering of modern man is the lack of meaning. When life loses its why, emptiness takes hold. Nietzsche, who deeply influenced Frankl, also saw meaning as an internal battlefield. He believed that every individual should create their own value, their own response to existence, rather than follow pre-made, manufactured, imposed values. But creating your own meaning requires courage. Courage to disappoint expectations. Courage to break out of autopilot. Courage to face the silence within and discover what truly pulses inside you. And maybe that's why so many people avoid diving inward. Because it's easier to follow the ready-made path than to build your own. Easier to maintain the appearance of success than to admit you feel lost. But you're not alone. Many people are exactly where you are, tired of living a life that doesn't reflect who they truly are. And if you're feeling that right now, pause for a moment. Breathe. Maybe that feeling of emptiness isn't the end, but the beginning. The beginning of the questions you've been postponing. The awakening of your will to truth. Nietzsche believed that it's in this very moment, when everything seems to lose meaning, that you're given the chance to rebuild, not to return to who you were, but to become for the first time who you truly are. Have you ever felt that the more you try to think differently, create something new, or act with authenticity, the more the world tries to pull you back to the average? Nietzsche saw this with clarity. To him, the system we live in, social structures, institutions, collective norms, wasn't designed to value individual excellence, but to preserve order. And to maintain that order, the system rewards what is predictable, obedient, and controllable. For Nietzsche, the mediocre man is not the ignorant one. It's the one who has conformed, the one who settled for what was handed to him, the one who never questioned the rules, never confronted his own beliefs, the one who prefers belonging over thinking. Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies. Nietzsche, and this is precisely where the system triumphs. It turns mediocrity into a virtue. Being average has become synonymous with being balanced. Being obedient has become synonymous with being ethical. Being the same has become synonymous with being accepted, but at what cost? How many brilliant ideas die every day suffocated by fear of judgment? How many people swallow their opinions in meetings, conversations, or projects just so they don't seem too different? How many life, career, and identity choices are shaped not by desire, but by the need to be understood? Nietzsche believed that the true free spirit doesn't fit in. It overflows. And because of that, it is persecuted, labeled, discredited. The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. The truth is harsh, but it's liberating. The system doesn't want you to be free. It wants you to be functional. It wants you to produce, consume, obey, and not question. It wants you to repeat the scripts, follow the expected paths, and live a comfortable life without depth. That explains why so many people spend their lives trying to fit in and end up feeling like they never truly lived anything meaningful. Because to live in mediocrity, philosophically speaking, is not to live a small life. It's to live far from yourself. It's to settle for a minor role when you carry an entire universe inside, waiting to be explored. And maybe you're starting to notice that. Maybe you feel compressed, that your thoughts have been molded too much, that your essence has been shelved to make room for what was expected of you. But Nietzsche is clear. If you keep trying to fit in, you'll never grow. If you keep trying to please, you'll never find yourself. So maybe it's time to stop seeking acceptance and start seeking wholeness. Yes, that will scare some people. Yes, maybe you'll lose some privileges, but you'll gain something that can't be bought. The feeling of being aligned with your truth. The job no longer excites you. The money no longer satisfies. The routine no longer comforts. The accomplishments that once seemed so important now feel empty, like dusty trophies on a shelf no one looks at anymore. This is what Nietzsche called the beginning of the awakening. But awakening is not a beautiful process. It's a collapse. It's the moment when the mirror you spent years trying to polish, the one where you displayed your success, the pride of the family, the right person, cracks before your eyes. And what appears behind it isn't ugly, it's just true. Nietzsche said, "If you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you." That abyss is you. It's your life without filters. It's everything that was left behind, the dreams abandoned, the words swallowed, the love silenced, the versions of yourself that never had the chance to be born. But contrary to what many think, the abyss is not the end. It's the beginning, because only those who face the abyss head-on are able to cross it. And here lies the most powerful point of this journey. When you finally shatter the mirror that reflected what others expected of you, that's when you begin to truly see yourself. And that seeing changes everything. You begin to realize that much of what you believed was you was just conditioning. That much of what you defended, imitated, followed was a desperate attempt to be accepted. You start to remember things you had forgotten, what truly moves you, the questions you stopped asking, the kind of life that deep down you always wanted but thought wasn't allowed. This awakening can be lonely. Many people around you will think you're changing too much, that you're pulling away, overcomplicating, taking unnecessary risks. But Nietzsche would warn you, you must become the enemy of yourself in order to become greater than you are. That is the price of self-knowledge. You must let go of the comfortable illusion to embrace the uncomfortable truth. And the truth most of the time is that you were asleep, functioning, repeating, not feeling. But now, you've awakened. And that's all that matters. Because awakening doesn't require you to know the next step. It only requires that you stop walking in the dark pretending you can see. From this point forward, the journey is no longer about what the world wants from you. It becomes about what you want from the world. And that changes everything. Once the mirror shatters and awakening happens, an inevitable question arises. If everything I believed about success wasn't true, then what is success really? Nietzsche didn't want you to reject the idea of success. He wanted you to rebuild it from scratch, with your own hands, with your own experiences, with your pain and your freedom. For him, true success doesn't lie in external achievement, but in internal integrity. It's not about having more, appearing more, or beating others. It's about being who you truly are, despite everything they tried to make you into. Become who you are. Nietzsche. This is one of the most powerful phrases in Western philosophy. Simple but brutal because it demands courage. The courage to unlearn everything you were taught. The courage to disappoint those who expected a different version of you. The courage to start from zero with honesty. But what does it mean to become who you are? It means looking inward and recognizing which parts of you are truly yours, and which were placed there by others. It means reclaiming what you abandoned for the sake of acceptance, your art, your sensitivity, your boldness, your curiosity. It means, above all, living in alignment with what you believe, even if it makes you incomprehensible in the eyes of the world. And that is rare, because the new kind of success doesn't make noise. It doesn't need applause, likes, or public recognition. It's quiet, but solid. The new success might look like a teacher who left a lucrative career to teach in a public school because that nourishes his soul. It might be an artist who never became famous but wakes up every day excited to create. It might be an entrepreneur who earns less than he could, but built a business that doesn't violate his values. These people may never appear in Forbes, but they sleep in peace, because they're not trying to seem like something. They're simply being, and maybe deep down this is what you've been searching for all along. Not recognition, but coherence. Not status, but freedom. Not victory over others, but reconciliation with yourself. Nietzsche would say that this is the greatest form of power, not power over the world, but the power to no longer betray yourself. So the next time you feel like a failure for not achieving the success they promised you, stop and ask yourself, was that success ever really mine? Or was it just another attempt to fit into a mold that was never made for me? Because maybe, just maybe, you're already much closer to your true success than you think. You were deceived, but now you know. And that changes everything. You don't have to keep repeating the script. You don't have to keep pretending everything is fine while you're suffocating inside. You don't have to keep living as if you owe the world an apology for being who you are. Nietzsche never wanted you to be happy in the shallow sense of the word. He didn't believe in happiness as a final goal. He believed in the inner strength that's born when you face life with open eyes and your feet on solid ground. He who has a why can bear almost any how. And maybe now, you've found your first why. The success they promised you, and with stability, fame, admiration, and status, might have been well-intentioned. But it wasn't made for your soul. It was made to keep things running, to help you fit in, to ensure you didn't disrupt the system. But you were born for much more than that. You were born to turn pain into language, to turn silence into creation, to turn doubt into courageous questions. You were born to say no to what dims your light, and to say yes to what expands you, even if no one else understands. Nietzsche believed that the greatest revolution a human being can achieve is not to overthrow governments or accumulate wealth. It is to recreate oneself with honesty. And that demands letting many things die. Expectations, masks, labels, roles. That's why this journey is a lonely one. Because no one can wake up for you. No one can cross the abyss on your behalf. But in the end, it's this crossing that makes everything worth it. Because on the other side, there is no new you. There is the real you, the one who was always there, but who you couldn't hear, or because of fear, guilt, or haste. Now you're listening. You're breathing deeper. You're moving with more intention. You're living with more truth. Real success is not at the top. It's in the integrity with your own essence. It's in being whole, even when the world tries to split you apart. So if this video touched something inside you, if at any moment one sentence made you remember who you are, then don't let it fade. Don't let this awakening become just another beautiful thought. Turn it into action. Write, create, rebuild, change course. Silence those who limit you, and above all, start living. Because the world needs more people who are true to themselves. And it all begins when you stop trying to be what they expect, and finally start being who you were born to be.